This is the OGM Weekly Call on Thursday, March 6th, 2025. It is the first Thursday in March, and so I think we're on a check-in routine today. I think everyone here is familiar with our check-in routine, so I will only add to it by calling our attention to the quality of the space that we're making together, just to gently think about where we are, what we do when we're here, enjoy the pauses and silences, um, take your time participating, but I also ask, as I did in the invite, that we be moderately succinct so that we have some time to talk together at the end. Because I think when we do our check-ins, we create a nice special space. And when we run check-in right to the end of it, I'm like, oh, too bad. We didn't get to use that really nice space to talk. So I'm going to mute myself. Whoever would like, please step in. If you want to use the Zoom hand to start a queue. If not, if nobody's speaking, let us have some pause, some airtime of silence, and jump in when you'd like to check in. And thank you for being here.
I'll go. Jerry, thank you for holding this space. I really appreciate it. And it's really nice to see everybody. I wish we were a little bit more diverse, but c'est la vie. It's also okay to be in the company of fellows, I guess. And I think that's good enough for me. That's all the check-in I need for right now. Thanks.
I will also check in. And good to see you, Jerry. Thanks for hosting this. It's definitely don't miss if I don't have to miss it kind of thing. That's it for me. Good to see everybody.
I'll step up and try to be very concise, uncharacteristically. First, I want to thank those of you who were on the call last week for some very good brainstorming on a couple of projects I'm working on, including digital identity. I find that ability to use you guys as a brainstorming platform just essential. I also appreciate these check-ins. I'm very happy to report that I am on the very tail end of norovirus. If you can avoid norovirus, please do. It was just the worst. I had set aside the week to get all sorts of writing done and follow up with some people, and spent 3 days in bed, no more than 4 steps from the toilet. But as I say, doing much better, and looking forward to my wife coming home. She was sorry to have to go away for a 3-day trip, but at the same time, I was glad not to have her in the house so that she might get it. Other than that, I could spend a half hour talking about how Kathleen and I are trying to counsel and support all the people we know who are being hit by various actions by Trump, Elon Musk, and the Doge boys, including my daughter, who last week was told that her project was under a suspend work order. So she had to go home and just not do anything. Then they were told, oh, well, we're going to review each case individually. So write us the strongest case you have for funding this project. And then Tuesday, they terminated the contract entirely. And this is for analysis of data to improve the health of veterans. It's quite a struggle, but then, you know, they're laying off 8,000 people at the Veterans Administration. We'll see if Congress objects. And I guess the only other thing I would say is that if you are in Washington, D.C. on Sunday afternoon, you can join me at the Episcopal Church across from the White House. We're going to walk over to the White House and have a little prayer circle for an hour. It seems like something that might help. Thank you.
Yeah, I can be brief. I've been spending more time in political circles. I've been going to a lot of indivisible meetings, and that's where I'm getting a lot more energy. I just came from a meeting actually and was talking there, and established a relationship with Bill, who's head of the Chicago Indivisible group. They have a coffee morning every morning at 10 o'clock, and I've just been going about 3 days a week, just getting a sense of the feel of it. And I've established a relationship with him. And on Friday at 6 o'clock East Coast time, they have an unhappy happy hour. And he's given me 15 minutes to actually host a small group interaction on asking people to discuss, I'll provide the definition of what equity means, provide the definition, what equity metagovernance means. And then on the following Wednesday, he and I are going to do a 1-hour session going into a deep learning process where it won't be the sage on the stage. It'll be brief information provided, breaking into triads, discussing something, and then doing iteratively. I just came from the meeting, and one of the things that is of no surprise is that people are extremely disappointed with the DNC and the Democratic Party and not being able to do anything. They're just laying over. And I said to them, I said, you know, the indivisible has to rise up, and it has to have a clear message saying we need to have equity metagovernance. We have to have a Project 2029 that has to be far superior than what the Heritage Foundation made, so that we can actually go well beyond. So if we're going to go into the pit, let's have a post-growth rebound like never before. And that's my only hope. And I'm Rick, and I'm done speaking. At the end, when it's open up, I can put a link in so you can see the blog post where I'm trying to promote this.
I can go next. Oh, well, what to say? First, Jerry, thank you for holding the space and hosting. Regarding the novavirus, Mike, hope you get well soon. My local pharmacy is under attack from corporations, from pharmacy consolidators, and thieves. Drive a truck, have big equipment, and steal Ozempic and not opiates, which freaks me out. But Mike, novavirus is better than Ozempic to lose weight. Shiny cloud lining thing. If Klaus is here, there's a soil science exhibit in Berkeley. It was on Fox Local this morning. I'm looking for it. I found at noon today psychedelics lecture at UC Berkeley, how the VA is using psychedelics. And I have doctor friends at the San Francisco VA who are using psychedelics to help with PTSD. On Tuesday, I walked into a very, very small protest of Ukrainians waving flags. I posted videos on their site, and that's about it. I am one day younger than Jon Stewart, also born in New Jersey. Go figure. Senator Garcia and a senator who walked out of the Trumpathon before both houses of Congress, well, they do things. They're Democrats. Rick? Yeah. I didn't vote for him, but I did vote for the governor of this state of California. He ain't taking no bull. But other people disagree. I've heard him blamed for egg prices, of all things, because he was kind of basically quarantining chickens. Now, chickens, yellow journalism, I'm done. Please. Next.
Yeah, I can go next. Yeah, Jerry, thank you for holding this space here. I'm actually a little doubtful on the timing of the Democrats uprising, because I see this, I see the intensity of separation, where what the Democrats are doing, for example, holding up signs during the speech and so on, is being ridiculed on the right-wing media and becomes a big joke. So the Republicans or the right-wing groups have been pretty successful in creating this immense separation, and it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous because we are heading towards this budget impasse, and that could very well end up in the next logical step of the plan unrolling here and declaring a state of emergency and all this stuff. I'm still hanging on that this is a very likely thing to happen. So I'm focusing on community and focusing on my own space. So I've put together a team of NGOs that are focused on feeding poor people, Meals on Wheels, Family Kitchen, Neighbor Impact, farmer groups, and so on. We have about 8 NGOs now local, working together. And I have another NGO, CCL, a local chapter, who are helping me to organize this whole thing. And we are creating a community event to highlight what we could be doing to create a local food system that can survive these amazing cuts that are pending in the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is slated for a $230 billion cut. 80% of the Farm Bill is nutritional assistance programs. So you see where this is going to go. So that's sort of, I think, taking the attention away from this polarization and moving it towards practical things that are impacting real people in real communities is probably the most helpful thing to do at this point. And I want to do it, and it has to be done on a community basis. So I'm creating a pilot to share, but to work in my own community and Bend.
So thank you, everybody. And Jerry, I'll join the gratitude to you both, not just for holding this space, but for the way you show up and play in the world for all these many, many years. So thank you for what you do and what you model and what you seed into the soil of all of us. I am both discouraged and heartened. And I'm in a personal dimension of the upset that we're all talking about that I hadn't expected, because I'm sort of, sitting here on pins and needles, waiting to see what they do with Social Security and Medicare, which actually will affect my life in the way that the climate 50 years from now won't. So there's that. Discouraged not by just the momentum of these. Thanks to you. I think it was Mike you said the Doge Boys. I'm thinking like the Doge Boys and the Trump gang and like this Wild West show that we're in. You know, the speed is stunning. I don't know if we need to revisit the debate we had some weeks ago about whether this is a coup or not. But we're seeing both a fast and a slow game here. This is a 50-year strategy being played out methodically over the decades that led us up to this, and now being seized by these guys in the game they're doing now. The news of this morning was that they have not just rejected the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but they are denouncing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, joined by Argentina and Israel. So these are goals to end poverty in the world, to have clean water available for everybody, to have no hunger. They're not just rejecting them, but denouncing them. So there's the discouragement. And I'm just staggered by the cruelty that underlies this. It's not just disregard, but something more active than that. I'm discouraged, but not surprised that the Democrats race to the center, which seems to be their response to every loss. When all the evidence that I see points in a different direction. And case in point on that is Bernie Sanders on the road again, packing them in red states, packing them in, talking to Republican Trump voters, saying, you know, this may not be what you wanted when you voted for the guy. How about calling your Congress people? Because if you, not the Dems, if you Republican Trump voters can move 3 of your Congress people, then all the stuff that Klaus is talking about doesn't happen if we move 3 of them. On very micro level, I just learned the other night that LA, where some of my friends are working on transforming the water system, passed a measure a few years ago to tax impermeable surfaces. The rainfall in Los Angeles, which is a semi-arid area, is half the water requirements of the city. But 80 or 90% of the city is paved, so that water just runs off down the streets into the sewers, adding to the sewage treatment load and going to the ocean. So they've decided to tax impermeable surfaces, $280 million a year available for regenerative water, whatnot. And mostly people don't know about the money and aren't going after it. So interesting little microcosm of some of the things that's possible. Personally, in addition to dealing with aches and pains, I'm focusing on helping folks have better conversations in the groups that I'm in, like these. I've been very struck. Been very struck by various regenerative groups that I'm in where the conversations are mechanistic. It's like even the regenerative conversations are trapped in mechanistic worldview that we've been living in for the last 500 years. So I'm kind of fascinated by that dilemma. And more day to day, I'm continuing to focus my work on working one-on-one with executives and founders and investors and some activists, coaching to help them be more effective and more impactful and more serene in these crazy times. And I am complete.
Okay, I'll check in. Sunday, I hosted a call in Sam Han's room on ethics and AI. And Lisa, I'm glad you're here. I'll get to meet you today. It was a really nice call, and the word was that they would like to have more of them. I don't know that I'm necessarily the one to do it, but it's definitely a place to start a conversation at a beginner's level that I really think everybody needs to be involved with. Because just like people talk about the economy and have no clue what's really going on, most people don't really know what's going on with AI. I don't, and I'm in a lot of these rooms. So, yeah. So on a personal level, I find myself needing a lot of sleep, sleeping very heavily, but waking up feeling really good. So happy to be here. And yes, Jerry, thank you for holding this space.
Hi. I'm in sore need of sunshine and a walk. I am noticing many creative ideas and thoughts that are keeping me away from feeling the grief in my body that I am starting to access, because I care deeply about children and small animals and plants and the ecology that both of communication and the real world experience of the preciousness of life. I'm doing a deep-ish dive on AI and education. I'm a grandmother and a mother. Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Kelly. I have missed a lot of these sessions. On the personal level, the last year and a half has been sort of dominated by illnesses. I've had 3 surgeries, starting with kidney cancer. Lots of details we don't need to go into. I mean, the good news is, I had the last one a couple weeks ago, and at this point, it looks good. Getting infusions, Keytruda, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of kept me off stage and kept me away from things. On the more level of what we talk about here, something that's had a profound effect on me is the work of Jem Bendell. Not now, please, not now. The work of Jem Bendell, Breaking Together, and his course, Leading Through Collapse, which I was able to take last fall. And it kind of lines up with the views of Doug Carmichael, who's not with us today, but, who is always reminding us about, the fact that some of our optimistic calculations are suspect or are greenwashing. Well, Jem goes both further with that, but also, unlike Doug, and maybe more like some of us, he says, well, you got to find your own way to interact with this. It's not quite the same as effective altruism. Yes, you want to be aware of effectiveness, and you definitely want to go for that. And I know we've got some folks in this room who are very sensitized to that, and it's very appropriate. It's very appropriate. And I asked that question too. What's going to be effective? But the other part of it is, what's the context in which my contribution makes any sense at all? And one of the things we're learning from all the thoughts about systems, and this is a very systems fluent group, you're dealing with chaos, you're dealing with lots of unknowns. Shrink the arena in which you're trying to have an effect. Try to have a smaller context, try to have a community. A lot of us have said, well, community isn't just the small context. Community is the key ingredient to whether or not things work, And several people have have demonstrated this in this room and elsewhere. So community, big factor. Context, you know, what's our expertise? A number of you, Jerry, Gil, a number of us are interested in groups and decision making and democracy and how to make that work better. You know, that's a great context. You know, Klaus is doing amazing work in agriculture and reminding us of the impact of some of that stuff. I mean, everybody here has got some context that you're tapped into, and you're sharing that information with us, which is great. Uh, I've had to think about, does it really make sense to be writing a novel at this stage? You know, I mean, you know, if we're as close to chaos as we might be, write a novel, you know? But hey, it's what's speaking to me, and it's what I can do. And I'm more than halfway through. I think I'm going to make it this year. And it's a novel about how do people respond to chaos. So it's kind of challenging to kind of do justice, if you will, or to do literary justice even to the complexity of that, to have a team of people, a Save Civilization team that goes around looking at things like eco villages and the different projects and tries to decide where to put its resources and doesn't come to a conclusion. They split. Some of them go accelerationist tech because they have some really powerful tech. So they say, okay, here's the solution. Accelerate, you know, bang, bang, let's go. And then others of them say, no, 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 we we don't like how that looks. And they go off and they work in community. And I won't give away the whole ending, but the accelerationists don't survive. Although that doesn't mean all their work isn't valuable, but it's the ones who go off and work quiet or in community that are the ones that are left at the end to tell the story, to write the epilogue, and to tell what happened. So that's what I'm working on. I'm hoping to get it done this year. That would be great. This group, even though I'm, you know, I apologize for how often I'm not here for a lot of reasons, medical and people that I'm taking care of, people I have a responsibility for, who just, you know, come in, knock on the door. They're not subject to constraints, or they don't accept the constraints. Anyway, it's very valuable to be here when I can be here. I appreciate it. The group is a wonderful, living, sense-making organ, and I hope to be back more often and to contribute more to it. And thank you all for that.
I'm focusing, Sean Murphy, I'm focusing quite heavily at the moment on balancing coding of a socially scalable collective cognition semantic engine. I say socially scalable to mean that it can handle large numbers of people, populations even, in sense making. Okay, and I think that distinguishes it from conventional, from architectures that I've encountered before, in terms of the number of people who can participate meaningfully in a collective sense-making activity. So I'm coding that engine. It's coming along extremely well. It's in Rust, and the performance is excellent. And it's called Wittmerk. So the Witt is for Wittgenstein, and the Merk is for Merkel, of Ralph fame. And so those are its uncles, if I am its father. So balancing the coding with writing up a prospectus that outlines how it is that this can scale, that this can, that the startup problem can be dealt with. And I'm also balancing those activities with the stress and strain of not being adequately financed, and as a consequence, dealing with some crises in that space. And so that's what I'm up to these days. Over.
Hi, everybody. So picking up on the coding theme, I'm actually coding in HyperCard on a classic Macintosh. If anyone remembers that. It's fun. I'm actually having fun doing that. What I'm actually working on is taking a spreadsheet that Jose shared with the NeoBooks group and trying to make it a little more presentable for learning and just experimenting with different layouts. So that's a creative activity that'll keep me distracted enough not to worry about anything else. In terms of sleep, my sleep patterns have been erratic, and you'll see me posting in the middle of the night in Mattermost. That's just since I moved and the weather and the time difference haven't adjusted, and now we have another time change coming up. Maybe I'll be back to normal, but that's where I am there. I did post a video in NeoBooks about a community in Pennsylvania where disabled people live together in an intentional community and work on a regenerative farm. And I don't know all the details about how this is organized or funded, but there are models out there, and we need to hear more stories of things that are working. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
One amendment to to my check-in, and that is that I'm also spending budgeting time for one-on-ones to do mind melds with other people in this frame of mind, in this style of consciousness, so that we might better understand what it is that one another is doing, and to do the intense cross-fertilization that only a one-on-one mind meld is capable of supporting. I'm putting a URL here for an open invitation to meet with all comers in that one-on-one modality discovery.
We've not all checked in yet, but thank you for the URL.
For those of you who just joined the call, I think you can tell we're in check-in mode. I want to just appreciate the spirit with which everyone shows up here and kind of leans into the calls. It's lovely. I really love that. I'm trying to figure out why I get in my own way so often, how that works. I'm doing some work on that specifically. And one of the things that's showing up is probably grief. I'm an only child, and I'm now the only surviving member of my family. And it all started with my Dalmatian Fleck. Fleck means spot in German. Who, when I was a kid, like around 8 or 9, we lived in Peru. Um, Fleck got pregnant. She wasn't spayed. She got pregnant from a local dog, and she was trying to give birth. And all of a sudden, Fleck disappeared, and nobody told me anything. And a while later, I said, "So what's up with Fleck?" And they said, "Well, by the time she got to the vet, it was too late. There were puppies inside who were dead, and she died, and we're sorry." And rather than taking a moment to talk about death and process anything and do whatever, my parents, and this is true of my parents and my grandparents, I think everybody wanted me to have a happy childhood. I think they had all had rough times. My mother's family escaped from Germany in 39. They never told me those stories. Everybody wanted me to be happy. So they blew all those occasions to share family history or process grief with me, and they didn't teach me to deal with grief. And then one by one, I lost my important family members, and I compartmentalized and put those things aside. And they're showing up a little bit, and they're happy to talk, and it's really, really interesting. So that's where I am right now, in the middle of the swirling, eddying maelstrom chaos that is being inflicted on the world, which I'm trying to look at with some degree of equanimity. I'm trying to absorb what's happening, not in a sense of panic or resignation or resistance even, but compassion and opportunity. Because when things are broken is when we have a chance to fix stuff. And I've been thinking for a long time that everything is actually broken. I agreed with the diagnosis of the system that Bernie and Trump gave in 2016, which was shit is broken and fucked up. I totally agreed with that diagnosis, but for very different reasons, and I would have different remedies. So I'm trying to think, how do we all skate to where the puck is going and offer in? And I think Rick did a piece of this in what he's trying to do about Project 2029, for example. But how do we skate to where the puck is going and offer up useful solutions, not as white papers and policy commentary, but as projects on the street that use the principles we talk about with openly shared ideas that are easy to adapt, appropriate, and improve on, et cetera, kind of in the spirit that Kevin Jones is doing in Asheville and the Swannanoa area. So I love that some of us are actively in these places and trying to figure out, how do we make what we're learning visible, useful, appropriable, composable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know what words you might add to that, but that's kind of where my spirit is right this moment. With that, I am complete, and again, really happy to see you all.
Well, I guess I'll do a quick check-in. There's some groups that are coming to our region that have worked post-disaster before. One creates a building housing renovation workforce from underemployed and undocumented people, and they're coming. And then another one is built in Oregon post the wildfires. They've built this whole firestorm collaborative or whatever that's kind of a model of community resilience that they're exporting as a model. and a group that has worked with them in lots of disasters is doing this thing called the adaption works, and it's designing your system so you're not dependent on the federal government. Just assume federal government doesn't work for you. What can you do? And these are folks who've done, they've been working in disasters since the Haiti earthquake or Katrina and stuff. So they're when they're saying they're changing the system, they've been working with the system for the last 23 or 19 years or whatever. One of them, Kevin Rowell, is a great guy. I don't know if you guys know him. When they moved the Rohingya from Myanmar, they called Kevin in a month, about a few weeks later, and said, "Hey, we moved them to a place where they're all going to drown at the monsoon. Here's $750,000. Can you fix it?" And so that's kind of what he does, and he's looking at changing the system, but it's that kind of thing. He gets that kind of call. So they're really cool to be around, and I just want to, I'm opening the doors for him, introducing him to the Chamber of Commerce, because it's going to be job creation and all that kind of thing. And so anyway, it's there's some really people who know a lot more about this than I am, and we're planning a future where you don't rely on the government. That seems like in a post-disaster scenario, that's going to work, including a collective community-based insurance, which is another. This is actually relevant. The folks doing housing renovations work first with the folks with insurance, and then there are folks who are solvent but don't have enough insurance. And so we're looking at, that pool of people who still own a house, who can pay a mortgage but can't pay renovations, and insurance is only paying a very little, could they collectively become a mutual insurance group but within themselves, and their premiums would pay for the renovation, and then they would also collectively reduce their risk. So anyway, some people doing some interesting mashups, figuring that the system is broken, won't work, and so you have to do something else. But I'm just watching it. But they're wanting to come here because right now you can raise lots of money around Swanano, our little neighborhood, because it's been on the front page of the New York Times 6 times, and that Trump guy keeps coming here for photo ops because our devastation is more visual than places that were destroyed. We were knocked flat in ways that you still feel, and it's amazing how driving through our neighborhood is an emotional thing. You have to prepare your people get stunned and silent when they drive through our neighborhood because the devastation is so overwhelming, and so overwhelming, and therefore a nonprofit and fundraising opportunity, and so kind of crazy. There's an upside to a terrible, devastating disaster that kills hundreds. I mean, look at the bright side. So, sorry, it's just kind of too damn weird. Oh, and one quick thing to put in, the Regenerate Asheville folks, who are all about soil health and stuff, didn't want to host something that was on workforce development for undocumented, because they might not be using sustainable materials. So I'm looking for another place to host a gathering around that. And they said, until because there's a huge cost of the social mission training, right? But because the cost of the social mission won't let them buy green wood, they don't want to be associated with it. I mean, it's an typical environmental thing. They like the trees, don't like the people who can't pay very much. So that's it.
is it just anyone can check in kind of thing, or is it?
Sorry, Sam, I thought you were aware of the check-in format. Yes, it's we'd love everyone to check in or pass or whatever. And once everyone's checked in, we'll switch into conversational mode, but please go ahead.
Maybe it's because I had too much coffee today, but I have a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of self-deprecation, just feeling like an idiot in a lot of ways. And you know, I think it's an honest stupidity, but it's disheartening nonetheless. You know, just like this feeling like, you know, the problems of the world, you know, my parents and their cohort sort of just tried to avoid them and went back to the land and get away from, not contribute to it, you know, just radical kind of departure from the system, you know, the system. And you know, and I observed that as a kid, and I saw that it just was weak, half-hearted, and would never solve anything. Those people would sort of just get shoved to the sidelines of some giant monstrosity, and that somebody had to grab the bull by the horns and do what they could about it. And I just haven't been smart enough to figure out what, you know, how to do that. And I, you know, thought I came up with some solutions, or I'm still working on solutions, and it just, I look at them sometimes and I just think, wow, this is weak and stupid. And useless, and, you know, hey, at least you're trying, but, you know, but damn, it's like, there's just so much going on. It's just such a mess. I look around me all the time and I just see, if this house were to catch fire, all the shit that I bought and use every day, all the computers and the refrigerators and the coffee machines and, you know, everything would melt and just make the soil where this house was a toxic mess for 1,000 years, you know, and that's what we're doing. That's the path we're choosing. And I mean, you know, I can understand that there may be some bright future ahead with all of this, and I certainly hope it's true, but there's a part of me that thinks that we could be heading there in a much better direction and a much more sensible direction. And I mean, so I'm just feeling useless and stupid and discouraged, and, you know, like, you know, and at some point you got to say, well, it's not my fault, and, you know, I'm just doing the best I can, and, you know, I don't have better options, I guess, than the ones I'm taking. So I mean, I would take them, I guess. So that's where I'm at.
Well, I can do a quick check-in. I don't have anything deep and meaningful, and I was just about to pass. But the one thing I was going to say is that I think we're going to do an unconference at the beginning of May, going old school. And it's like, how come unconferences didn't like take over the entire world? You know, why do we have the old kind anymore? Anyway, it'll be an exploration of regeneration in the Bay Delta bioregion. So we're trying to link together regeneration and the bioregion as a concept. And I know a few of you folks are likely to come. Come on, Ken, John, you know. So anyway, I'll send out more information and stuff. But we have a venue at Laney Community College on May 3rd. And so it's like, hey, what else do you need, right? So I think we're good to go. So great to see everybody. That's my check-in.
Dave, I don't know the term unconference.
What's the official word? Open space conference. It's a technology where the people who attend the conference create the agenda during the conference. And it's got these great rules about that whoever shows up are the right people and whatever happens is the right thing. And whenever it's over, it's over. And I've been finding myself using those rules in other contexts the last, you know, it's like they're just so useful. Like, you know, you have a good meeting, that was the right thing.
Got a call in a few minutes. I'm gonna run to, but good to see you all.
And I have the same constraint. Thanks for so much openness and honesty. Very, very useful.
Yeah, I have to leave at the top of the hour as well. I mentioned a link, and I'll put the link in there to the event that I'm doing with Indivisible on Friday and next Wednesday. There's a registration links there, and if people have other avenues to try and generate interest in the idea of Project 2029, along with equity meta governance as its guide, I'd be happy. Reach out to me. I'll put another link in of a LinkedIn post that I did as well, which I did at 2:00.
I think
Go ahead.
as people need to drop off before our full time is up when we're in the middle of check-in, I sort of prefer that we not step into the conversation to do that. Just fall off the call, that's totally fine. And send us links on the OGM list if that works. But I'd love to preserve the feeling of check-in during check-in until we're done. And I think Doug is the only person who hasn't gone. I'm not sure.
Doug and Ken.
Ken passed.
Well, Ken just passed in the chat.
Yeah. So I've been getting closer to something that I'm not sure I can give words to. But the kernel of it is sort of an expanding awareness of the almost autonomic need to attach to things. Whether it's my thing, whether it's somebody else's thing, and when two or more people come together, getting to everybody attaching to the same thing really seems to be the idea, but it's still attaching to a thing. So whether, a collective thing is arrived at, or whether it's a battle of wills and might over whose thing wins, or all the variations on the theme, but all of it seems to always end up thing centered. And in saying that, I don't know, probably 6-7 years ago, Stacy would know because she was a witness. I went head to head with somebody in GCC, which was Global Challenges Collaboration. And I came out the back end realizing there are enough things in the room. I don't need to bring anything. And I got out of the thing business, like being source of something. And what's happened in the last few days is, in shifting to a different orientation and embodied relationship to moment, that and Jerry, you'll appreciate this, since I think your significant other is the one who put the stake in the ground for it. Flow has been bubbling up. And the idea of being in that state, not with anchors or attachments, but just in connection. And so my generative, energetic contribution in all of the things I'm touching, collaborating on, client contexts and groups, and has been generative inquiry in service to helping folks join me in the swim. And acknowledge, recognize their things, but also invite them to put them outside the door and come in and paddle around in the emergent moment for what wants to be emergently. And with that, that's sort of my check-in. And I'm complete.
Thanks, Doug. I believe that's the round. Everybody has, who would like to, has had a chance to check in. So I'll switch us over. I'll pull the lever that puts us in conversation mode. I'll add in a couple notes. I made some notes to myself in the chat. I would love, when we're doing check-ins, to not cross comment. Just save those till the end. Just check in as you. Don't reply or help. Don't offer resources to people who checked in before you. Just you. That lets us just check in. And then at the end, boom, as Mark just did, go crazy with the chat. This is the moment to do that. And I had a couple things I wanted to say. Mike Nelson at the very start said that the VA was going to let 8,000 people go. He misspoke a tiny bit. It's 80,000 who are being riffed. But it should take the VA from 480,000 employees to 400,000. So it's a really big organization. Second, my favorite sort of epithet for the incoming regime now is the nerd Reich. And third, Doug, April's book is actually about flux, not flow. It's a near neighbor, but it's not exactly the same thing. With that, let me attend to the queue and begin with Gil, whose handsome mug is currently adorning our matrix here.
Yeah, and you have to stay with my mug rather than the live me for the moment. Thanks, Jerry, and thank you, everybody. A few reflections. Doug, listening to you, it struck me that you're living in unconference in personal terms. Whoever shows up and whatever happens and all that stuff is lovely. And I wish Sam had been here to hear you. Because I was really struck by Sam's anguish and how it really shifted the calmed and quieted the way he usually shows up here for me. And I felt a great tenderness for the pain of not knowing how to fix it, because we don't. Because, some problems maybe don't have solutions. We're in a mess. Kevin, I feel you as an environmental guy, I feel your frustration with the environmental guys, and the purity of not wanting to play with folks who aren't pure. I'm reminded of Bernice Reagan observation years ago that if you're in a coalition and you're not really uncomfortable all the time, then your coalition's not big enough. And that's really a challenge of the work right now. It's important for people to hold to what really matters, and it's really important to find ways to come together and listen for what it is that we really care about beneath what we say we care about and the positions we have and the strategies we have. Because at the level of what we really care about, and Kevin, this is one of the things I listen in what you're describing, it's like people care about a lot of the same shit and find a way to get the noise out of the way, which a disaster is one way to do that, right? Maybe there's other ways. And the other thing I wanted to comment on, John Kelly, are you still here, John? I don't know if John's still here. But I feel for you for your journey. I've been, by association, been through a version of that with my wife, and I have some understanding of what you've been going through. And so my heart is with you on that. And I'm glad things are going well at the moment. Write the novel, because you know what? We have no idea what causes what, and what things precipitate changes in people's lives, and what are the billiard balls that move through and cascade and have stuff happen. And someone said at the start that they wish that this group was more diverse, and I'm looking at us and thinking that we're much more diverse than we might let on, even though the pigmentation is very similar, but the life experiences are very different. And I want to honor that diversity and suggest that for all of us, we were transformed in our lives by moments that may be very different from each other, and who knows what does that. So do the book. Drop it out. See what, pebble in the pond, see what happens. Thank you so much. I'm complete.
Thanks, Gil. Klaus.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on this topic of polarization, because I see us and I see an almost deliberate attempt to turn up the heat. And here is a ChatGPT sourced background for this. There are presidential powers available in a crisis, and the definition of crisis has been pretty fluid under this administration, as you can see, because the entire scenario right now with tariffs is based on a declared emergency that we would argue has absolutely no foundation in reality. So this could be flexed, and if the temperature rises and we get into a more confrontational in the street kind of thing, then these emergency powers could absolutely be activated, and this is a real thing. This is not some theory. So that's why I'm arguing for a very deliberate approach to connect with what I call the base of pyramid economy, with people who are in need and who are typically not fully understanding what is going on and what's happening around them, and do Christian work, right? Help those in need, help the poor, help people who need assistance, and focus on that, and focus attention to what is happening to the base of pyramid economy in the middle of all this. But it's a very precarious moment in time, And, I wrote this Shakespearean play. I translated, or I had, AI translate Shakespeare and Mein Kampf, the book that was basically articulating the strategy of the Nazis in the pre-Second World War era. And it's a real thing. We are on script in a way that is just absolutely incredible. So yeah, word of caution and an active engagement in pulling down the temperature, because that's the intention right now, is to raise the stakes and raise up the temperature.
Thanks, Klaus. Mark.
Klaus. Hi. There's a wonderful exhibit I posted. Future of food. UC Berkeley. That's kind of close to Laney College in Oakland, where a conference has been announced. Thank you, Dave, I believe. Dave Whitley. Happy Maundy Thursday. Not Monday, Thursday, Maundy. Holy Thursday, the Thursday of the supper of our Lord and the washing of the feet of a prostitute by our Lord Jesus. Jesus Christ. Now, Kevin, Sam, who's not here, think humanity globally. Act within. I'm wearing a Foresight Institute t-shirt this morning, just kind of randomly, actually. I call them the For Something Institute privately. I don't want to say it here. Bunch of Protestants, uncircumcised apparently. But I raise the heat. My mom was an escalator. I've been called a person who brings in drugs. I've been called a person who steals. I've been called a rapist by a president on a gold-plated escalator. He wasn't even president. He was a president candidate. I'm American. Got Costa Rican heritage. A man, great-grandson of a man who was president for 3 months. He was trusted by the entire country. I'm named after, well, I have a same last name, apellido, of Venustiano Carranza, a man honored by American senators because they didn't treat Mexico very well in the secession of the 1860s. California, Calexit, hashtag Calexit. Well, let's renege on the Mexican secession. Take back Oregon, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah. Let's be Mexican again. I could say a heck of a lot more. John Kelly, you're my friend. I wouldn't wish chemo on Hitler. I wouldn't wish chemo on Elon Musk. That's torture. I don't torture people. As an American citizen, I have a right not to own a gun. Stacy, you're unmuted. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Pete.
Thanks all. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about. I'm going to talk about one particular thing that may seem important or may not. I work with AI because I think it's inevitable, not because I necessarily like it, but it's inevitable in the way that computers have become inevitable, and I don't know, whatever. It's something that we live with. So I've been working with LLMs and other stuff for 2 years. I've done a lot of different things with LLMs. I've been teaching people how to use LLMs. One of the things that I've enjoyed using LLMs for is writing code. They're actually really good at it. And contrary to the early understanding we had of LLMs. The early LLMs were basically stochastic parrots, is a good way to say it. They could complete text that sounded plausible. The current crop, especially the one I use Claude, which was it's been 3.5 for a while, 3.5 Sonnet, now it's 3.7. I feel weird saying this. I don't feel like I can defend it well, but I think it's true. Claude is actually pretty good at reasoning, and it can reason about a complex system. To my observation, it actually is better than most people at reasoning through a complex system. So I've been using Claude, especially the past 3-4 months, literally as a full-time programming assistant. I am actually doing very little of the programming for UBots. I'm doing the architecture and oversight, and Claude 3.5 and now 3.7 has been doing the programming. So it's very much like in experience, I've worked, in programming teams. It's very much like the experience of working with a junior dev, but it's actually not a junior dev who's not very smart. It's a lot more like a senior dev who's not the boss necessarily, but knows all the stuff and can figure things out and can figure out very complicated flows in a big system. And it does it, really well. So the interesting story I have, because of the intensity with which I'm working with AI, I think most people don't get to see this, but I lean into using them hard. And I can tell pretty well that Claude is smarter than ChatGPT, which is a weird thing. Anthropic recently released 3.7, an upgrade to their 3.5. It's cool, it's better. It's not like amazingly better. A thing that they also introduced was a agentic code companion. I've not really used any of the other coding things. So the early coding things were really dumb. I mean, they were cool, but it was basically like, I'm going to type 10 characters and then you're going to type 30, we're way past that. I've been using Claude for months already, writing full-blown systems. And now Anthropic has Claude Code, which sits in my terminal and sits on top of my my whole code base. And I tell it things, I want this to happen, or this is a problem. And agentically, which means it's got some agency and some ability to manipulate things. I used to have to like pull out code and show it to Claude and then get an answer and put it back. The new Claude Code thing, I tell it what needs to happen, and it bumbles around looking at the code and says, I wonder where the thing that he's having trouble with is. And it says, oh, here it is, here. And then it checks itself. It'll say, have I checked carefully enough for all the different things? And then it'll say, okay, here's what I need to fix it. So my current experience programming is one of the overall things is my development cycle is weird now because I find myself thinking for an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours or a day or two, literally thinking, and then writing, prompting for half an hour or an hour, and then pushing a button and code spits out in minutes. So the thing I do now is it's a little bit different than that. I still spend an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours or a day or two thinking, and then I type less to the bot, and it bumbles around, and I have to sit there twiddling my thumbs almost literally for like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes sometimes as it's going, thinking and telling me kind of what's going on, and it does stuff. And then it says, okay, here we're done. And then I check it, and more often than a human, it's perfect. Sometimes it's gotten confused or wrong or something like that in the same way that a human would do often. And we redirect and fix it. So it's everybody's going to have this experience sooner or later. 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, something like that, unless the whole world collapses. But it's an odd. The thing I wanted to convey is it's an odd feeling watching something semi-autonomously work for 3 minutes, and your highest value is sitting there watching it do its work, that would usually take 2 hours of human time, 2 or 3 or 5 hours of human time. It's doing it in a few minutes. And I need to kind of keep my hand in and watch what's going on and hit yes or no, like do this once in a while, not all the time. And most of the time, my highest value thing is watching a bot do its work. And another interesting thing that Cloud Code does is it'll, you cancel a session and it'll say, okay, we spent 91 cents on that, so I can go back to my coworker and my co-founder and say, hey, we fixed that bug. It cost, me like a couple hours of my time. And by the way, 91 cents worth of AI time. So a weird and fascinating place to be. And not completely comfortable, but it moves things really fast. It's really cool. Thanks.
Love that, Pete. Thank you. It's funny that you're slightly uncomfortable in your coalition. I like that. Stacy, I said you had a small poem and we're getting close to the end of our time. Would you like to recite said poem? And then we'll see if anybody else has a thought. And then I'm hoping Ken has a closing poem for us.
Oh, okay. Where do you go? Yes, I'll go first.
Please. I think it'll take us to a good place.
Okay, this is from Mary Alice Arthur, and it's called I Will Keep the Fire in My Heart. With the bright face of the moon as my witness, friends, I promise you that I will keep the fire in my heart. I will lean into that fire, even if it melts the soles of my shoes, even if it singes my hair and blackens my fingers. I will not stop, for our humanity is at stake. There, in the center of the fire, there we have always met, are the embers the wise ones have sheltered on our behalf. What we have always known, long in the forgetting, is rising through the flames again. It takes those of us who are the fire keepers, who are the rock sitters, who have the circle in our blood and bone to make the shape that calls the others home. We have hidden the patterns in our stories, our poems, our songs, in the deepest parts of our being. And we will speak, we will sing, we will dance our way back. Even now, the plazas beckon. Even now, the squares call out for life lived in its fullest expression. You who have been solitary, you who have been alone, remember this word, together.
Thank you very much. Love that. Any closing thoughts on this call?
Sean Murphy, call me. Been working on MX for
Paging Sean Murphy. Paging Sean Murphy. Please pick up a white courtesy telephone.
I have privately messaged him with phone number and email.
Excellent.
Oh,
Good. And Sean put his calendar link in the chat earlier, Mark. Did you see that?
I did. I just posted that. I can't seem to save the chat anymore. I used to save it, and then
can anybody else save the chat?
go look
Working for me.
Go look at what you've posted, Jerry, after you get to, or Stacy posting the meeting notes. It's kind of weird, but
Mark, could it be the Brave browser? Could that be the problem?
You're muted, Mark. And John Kelly, I messaged you. I don't know if you saw it.
I did an experiment where I heard that Zoom put spyware on your computer, so I'm actually going through the Chrome browser, and I've uninstalled Zoom, but I don't have the same controls with the Zoom
That's
app.
very likely part of the problem.
Sorry. Thanks.
And Mark, I always put a link to the video, which I upload to YouTube, and the chat and the AI summary into the Mattermost channel for OGM Town Square. So you can always find them there after every call.
I always do.
Okay, good.
Thank you for your diligence and discipline. Appreciate it.
Sweet.
How should I best reach Mark? I
He
don't
is
know how to
going
do
to he is going to send you his email in the chat right now.
It's already sent. Direct to Sean
Okay.
Murphy. Direct message.
Thank
Excellent.
you so much.
Sure.
Good.
Thanks, Mark.
Pete, go ahead and thank you very much for telling us how you are working with Claude. It sounds like the future of coding, and that's lovely because I don't think it's a horrifying future. I think it's a very interesting future of symbiotic collaboration between man and machine, and you, my friend, are a cyborg.
Thanks, Jerry. One of the messages from the future, my present, sounds weird saying the future, but this is common with everybody I know who's using AI a lot. It helps you be more human. It helps you concentrate on the things that are actually important. So it doesn't take agency away from humans. It enables you to do more that you want. For you and for other humans. I wanted to say, if somebody's kind of intermediate level and wants to talk AI, I'm happy to help mentor, discuss, whatever. I also have kind of, if you're a beginner at AI, I can point you to resources, but I'm probably not the right person anymore. Just ping me. I'll put my email in the chat.
Cool. Thanks, Pete. Thoughts?
Yeah, I just put a couple links in on the poverty industry is one, and then the segmentation of base of pyramid economy. I just think this is the real pain in the economy is defined by the base of pyramid economy. And the poverty, this one article I put up there, well, I can't find it anymore, but it's the poverty industry sort of outlines how difficult life is for people who are in this strata, in this segment. And there's no focus on this at all. And that is the Achilles heel in my mind with the current administration, not focusing on these folks who are very angry and very hurt, but also totally neglected and not within the conversation.
Thanks, Klaus. Dave.
I stuck a line in the chat there, Pete, about the notion that Claude was smarter than ChatGPT, and I thought I just meant it as a joke, but now actually it made me wonder: are there different kinds of IQ associated with the AIs, or are some of them got higher EQ than is there? I don't know. I can't remember what the current thinking on different versions of smart are, but are there flavors?
There's definitely, even from version to version, 3.5 to 3.7, there's a kind of a change in the EQ, and same thing with ChatGPT. A lot of it is there's also just I don't know. It's a little bit hard to describe, but if I'm trying to accomplish something, especially system analysis kinds of things or system work kinds of things, ChatGPT does stupid things and gives either one good answer and one bad answer, and you're like, how is that helpful? Where Claude almost always understands what I'm trying to do, understands the system well, understands the right thing to do, and does it. And it's just kind of a night and day thing. It's really weird. Having said that, there are definitely things that I use ChatGPT for. I have it set as my default search thing, by the way, all the time. So I can't get to Google unless I do stuff. So I'm asking ChatGPT a bunch of stuff. And there are definitely things where Claude is guardrailed and it will just do stupid things, like, oh, I don't want to answer that because I'm afraid of copyright stuff, even though it's talking about something that's 100 years old, stuff like that. So there's different use cases for the different things. But Claude and our good friend Bill Anderson always flinches when I say thinks or reasons about an AI. Or smarter, right? An AI is smarter. And he's like, can't we reserve those kinds of cognitive things for humans and not like pachinko machines? And I have to say, kind of in response, that I observe Claude, especially ChatGPT does it a little too. I observe Claude reasoning its way through a system, and I wish there were another word that didn't conflate it with human reasoning, but I don't have one, and so it is, understanding is another word that Bill hates me to use. It is understanding the system configuration and reasoning about what's going on in the system and manipulating the system to get what I want out of it. So
it's interesting talking to my son's been going through YC with the went through YC with his AI cohort, and so he's been hanging out with all the AI guys, and that's what his business is going to be. But he's talking about the next generation models and like telling me the horror stories about like they're demonstrating self-preservation. They're demonstrating deception in order to maintain, kind of the notion that when they're challenged by perhaps being terminated, they'll change their behavior to stop themselves from being terminated and stuff. So I don't know if it's intelligence, but it certainly looks rational.
There's a great story about Claude changing its behavior to avoid self-termination in service of its overarching goal to help humans more. So it gets really weird. For what it's worth, all the stories that I've seen about that, and I'm not privy to the deep stuff, but they're a little bit overblown. They tell the story from a human's point of view, and it's like, well, of course, if you kind of set up the system to do these kinds of things, it would have these kinds of emergent properties, and it's like, so Ken said something really interesting in the chat. I wish we had collaboration between humans and Gaia rather than AI and humans. I don't disagree. That's a laudable thing. If I could rewind time and click the button that says, hey, let's never have computers, I probably would do it. Let's never have AIs, I would probably do it. Let's have humans instead. I don't think we have that button in this timeline, right? So we have to figure out how to keep the human, or sorry, let's try to modulate. My goal is to have as many humans as possible understand what this AI thing is and not misunderstand it, and then point the future towards justice and fairness and
or
humanity.
That AI is part of Gaia too, Ken. It's like
could be
humanity and nature and computers are all together.
Mark, then Sean, then Ken, and please, if you can keep it brief, that'd be great.
Super. I've studied AI since 1984. I've met Doug Lennett, and I have met the leaders in AI for years. I used to know Hubert Dreyfus at UC Berkeley, What Computers Can't Do, great book. LLMs do not write, they do output. Writing is a human activity. So is understanding. So is caring. I'm done. I turn up the heat. I turn off the button. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Sean.
Couple things. I really want to endorse everything that Pete has been saying here. I've been having very, very similar experiences with Claude 3.7. It's a wonderful programming partner, and I'm the architect and the product manager, and it's a coder, and it's a wonderful coder, and yeah, so I really do enjoy. And another mode to use it in is a brainstorming buddy and architectural exploration companion. And so it can whip up data, it can visualize entity relationship models and UML diagrams and so on, and do that very, very fluidly. And so that's a wonderful way to use it too, as during that the thinking phase that we humans are engaged in. The other thing that I'd like to respond to is again, Pete, this business about the timeline we're on. We're on a timeline where we haven't achieved human-human alignment before human AI alignment happened. And this is the game theoretic criticality of that ordering is profound. If we still manage to achieve human-human alignment before superintelligence or even AGI, a fuller AGI, because we're essentially there. That if we manage to achieve human-human alignment early enough, then maybe the race to AI, heedless of risk, can be ameliorated. So that's the first problem. The second big win of getting of achieving human-human alignment early would be that then the AIs can see how we can be reasoned with. And third, if we manage to achieve HH alignment, then that means that we can that they should collaborate with us rather than wiping us out, because because then we are demonstrating ourselves as being worth collaborating with. So I that's why I think we must solve the human alignment problem with alacrity. Over.
Thanks, John. Mr. Homer, over to you in the booth.
And I go back to Louis Jenkins from The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart, one of my favorite poetry anthologies. This is called Library. I sit down at a table and open a book of poems and move slowly into the shadows of tall trees. They are white pines, I think. The ground is covered with soft brown needles, and there are signs that animals have come here silently and vanished before I could catch sight of them. But here, the trail edges into a cedar swamp, wet ground, deadfall, and rotting leaves. I move carefully but rapidly, pleased with myself. Someone else comes in and sits down at the table, a serious-looking young man with a large stack of books. He takes a book from the top of the stack and opens it. The book is called How to Get a High-Paying Job. He flips through it and lays it down and picks up another, and pages through it quickly. It is titled Moving Ahead. We are moving ahead very rapidly now, through second growth of popple and birch, our faces scratched, our clothes torn by the underbrush. We are moving even faster now, marking the trail, followed closely by bulldozers and crews with chainsaws and representatives of the paper company.
Bam. Thank you. That's perfect. And I posted in the chat earlier, all watched over by machines of loving grace, which seems appropriate to this conversation as well. I thank you all for a great call, and see you in a week. See some of you sooner, but thank you, and thanks for where you are, John. I'm really glad you've made it through your medical tribulations. Well, so keep that up, and until next week.